If you're looking at the upcoming Lentor Garden Residences, no, you're definitely buying more expensive than the first Lentor launch in 2022, which was Lentor Modern. Back then, when Lentor Modern first launched, people were very, very skeptical because it was the very first launch in a brand new estate with no less than 7 more land plots coming up next. Now, at Lentor Garden Residences, although you're paying a higher price, what you get is certainty, clarity, you're aware of what resale properties can transact for because, of course, Lentor Modern has already completed and has already sold on the sub-sale and resale markets. Then you also can see the rental demand, the mall is up, deliverability factor is here. Also, is the second last confirmed plot at the moment, and you can see the future land benchmarks. Of course, clarity often comes with compromises, and this is the case as well for Lentor Garden Residences. So follow me in this video. I'll recap the Lentor story. I'll go through some of the key highlights for this project, as well as tell you the key things you need to look out for. Stay to the end, and I'll have an exclusive invitation for you. Now, let's dive right in. So, Lentor Garden Residences by Kingsford. What is this project all about? It's perhaps the last affordable entry into an estate that's now a near sell out. Developer has released some key tidbits of info. First, the price will start from 2050 PSF and they expect to achieve an average selling PSF of 2,350. Mark this date in your calendar. The preview as of now is confirmed to open on the 4th of July 2026. So, how is the Lentor Garden story been so far? Well, we have to go back to September 2022, where the first launch in the area, Lentor Modern, came about. Back then, it was one of the first projects to actually cross average PSF of 2,000, right? One of the projects before this, I recall clearly, was Amo Residences. Okay. You see, thereafter it was followed by Lentor Hill Residences, Hillock Green, Lentoria, Lentor Mansion, Lentor Central Residences. Many of these projects, I'll be very truthful here, they had quite slow launches to start, but you can see right now, right? Early buyers who really jumped in, right? Later on, as I'll share, they made very, very decent profits. Okay. And people will say that there's a lot of supply here in Lentor, but look, pretty much everything is 100% sold, with the exception of just Hillock Green and Lentoria. And as of today, the estate is almost gone. 6 previous launches absorbed close to 3,000 units, and pretty much only 24 units remain across the entire Lentor estate. Oversupply? Well, it seems like the market is able to absorb all these new launches at Lentor area. Now we come to Lentor Garden Residences. Key thing to note is that our land cost here is only $920 per square foot per plot ratio. You have seen this many, many times. The next plot is 39% higher at 1,278 PSF PPR. That is like your pricing headroom. I won't go into much detail. We can see the next slides here. I want to emphasize again something that I said at my opening. Now you enter Lentor Garden Residences. You are the second last mover advantage. Yes, like I said, you are probably buying higher, definitely in fact, than Lentor Modern, but there's clarity. Lentor early buyers had cheaper prices, but less clarity. Today, you as a Lentor Garden buyers, you have no construction chaos because by the time your project TOPs, pretty much everything else is already complete. You have clarity on the views that you're going to get. You have data from all the previous launches. You have clarities on amenities and demand. You also have vision on the future launch pricing. So this is definitely not the cheapest entry, but definitely a more informed entry. This is an area that has proven demand. It has already proven to sell close to 3,000 units. And now that you are entering into a phase of the product phase of the area that is already mature and has already been proven. The upside is in the data, is in what you know right now. If you look back at the past launches, Lentor Hills, Lentor Mansion, Hillock Green, Lentor Central Residences, as my slide shows, we can see that the average max PSF across the last years is 2,491. If we know here that Lentor Garden Residences will launch at an average of 2,350, pretty much a vast majority of the units here, I would say, are within the absorption zone of buyers' affordability here. So if Likewise, for any new launch, you have to go through a balloting process. If you get something at a very reasonable PSF, low 2000 to 2003, I think it's a very, very good and safe entry. Even as long as your PSF on the higher ends doesn't exceed the higher PSFs here that we see 2004, 2005, it is still within a very acceptable norm for the Lentor estate. Gone are the days where it's risky to enter Lentor. I think, like I've shared also in my previous videos, that I think Lentor estate is one of the strongest price-supported estate in the entire Singapore. If we look further in the land cost, you will see that although all the projects listed here are post-harmonized projects, Lentor Garden Residences actually had the lowest land cost. That's because the developer bid for the property at a time when the Singapore market was a little bit tepid and not sure about the land prices and where prices are heading towards. But over the last year, as we have seen, there's a strong rebound, and that was the time where GuocoLand bidded for the next plot about 39% higher. Let's look more clearly at the buffer in numbers. Just based on their land cost, the break-even pricing for Lentor Garden Residences is looking to be about 1,900 per square foot. Whereas for the next plot by GuocoLand, it looks to be around 2003 to 2004, meaning that they may likely sell on an average of 2006 PSF even, which have been said at some of the reports. Well, even if we look at it more conservatively and they sell at around 2005, mind you, GuocoLand takes a lot of pride and they have a certain branding to uphold as well, so they will definitely not be selling cheap. Plus, because of the location, it's closer to the Lentor MRT station. We take a conservative $2,500 per square feet. Assuming a 936 square feet 3-bedroom unit at Lentor Garden Residences, this costs close to $2.2 million, whereas for the GuocoLand project at Lentor Central, it will cost around $2.34 million. As a buyer, you pay around 140,000 more to be approximately 200 to 300 meters closer to the MRT. Is it worth it? Maybe, but there are definitely trade-offs. If you are a buyer and you probably have a tighter budget and yet you want to come into this location, Lentor Garden Residences is definitely one of the last. If not, I would say certainly the last opportunity to enter here. Some fast facts about a project that I think are important is the location. This isn't shouted out about enough. In the past, it was mentioned as Ulu, where is Lentor, what's there at Lentor. But I think as the estate matures, as the mall has come up, as more news have come up, especially about the Woodlands North Station, the Thomson East Coast Line has pretty much completed, as well as, very importantly, the RTS Link Station, which is scheduled to open by end 2026. Lentor is just 4 MRT stations away from Woodlands North. And coincidentally, this morning, I just saw a video by one of our ministers, if I can, I'll share in the link here, that talks about how smooth the transit at the RTS station is between Singapore and Johor. It sounds like it's going to be quite seamless, which is definitely going to be a perk for traveling to Johor for people staying at Lentor. Next is that very uniquely, this project has 3 strata terraces. Well, limited supply, but I think it's something that buyers who want the kind of landed feeling, landed living in a condo resort-like complex, these 3 will definitely sell out very fast. Finishing is something very important because they are actually not using PPVC. They're in fact using traditional construction methods. What this means for you as a buyer is that you have layout flexibility. You can hack down the walls and reconfigure as you may desire. The on-site amenities are also great. I'll show you the site plans very shortly, but you have 3 shops and also a childcare center and a free shuttle bus. You think Lentor is near? They have a shuttle bus to Lentor even, and also to Ang Mo Kio MRT for the first year post-TOP. Here are some of the standout lifestyle features. When I first walked into the sales gallery, I'm really wowed by the huge pool. Length from one end to the other end is about 200 meters and it's elevated 5 meters above ground as well. It's pretty much like infinity pool overlooking the landed estates. Another major highlight for fitness enthusiasts is your 101 square meter, that's more than 1,000 square feet of combined gym and a yoga studio space. The plot of land is also very nicely positioned that most of the units pretty much you get park view or you get pool view. The facilities here feel very much adult and lifestyle oriented, right? And I think this is very much related to the unit mix, which I'll talk about later. This is a full visual of the site plan where you can see the full size of the pool. It's a full facility development, of course. You have a tennis court on the west side of the project. Interesting thing I find is that the pool is so big that if you want to walk from the north side of the project to the south side, you literally have to walk one big round. Okay. Here is another slide that I want to show, and I think is very important, where you can see how Lentor Garden Residences stacks up along with the other projects. Right, you can see here Lentor Garden Residences is over here. I'll just annotate it with an orange circle. So time for the key considerations which really stood out to me. North, south, east, and west. What do you notice? Immediately you'll see that many of the units, in fact, are westward facing. In Singapore, facing matters because afternoon sun is not a small detail, especially on the resale market. One of the things that buyers always ask is, does your unit face the west sun? Let me share a joke here because I was at the show flat briefing one of the other days, and one of my teammates, one of my colleagues actually said, maybe Kingsford, they forgot that in Singapore we don't have 4 seasons. Because I think perhaps in China where there's 4 seasons, and that's where Kingsford is from, west facing is less of a big deal compared to here in Singapore. So this is really, really important because it can affect the comfort of the occupants. It can affect electricity bills because your cooling cost for your AC might be higher. Your tenants might also be sensitive to it, although it's very often said that Westerners don't mind the west sun, and definitely it will impact the resale market. Of course, it's not fully 100% totally west, but compared to many other projects, there isn't another high rise in front that blocks off the west sun. Okay, and it really depends on the unit selection, the block angle, distance, height, or partial shielding. But definitely something to consider here. Next consideration, and like I shared briefly earlier, is that the unit mix, I think, is really interesting because it's the only project of all the Lentor projects that has more than 50% of the 2 bedrooms. And this is really a nuanced thing because when you buy your owner, you also want to be aware of why this unit mix matters. It means you may have more tenants, you may have more dinks, you may have more singles or couples in this project, which I think, in fact, caters heavily to the kind of environment and the kind of facilities that we see at Lentor Garden Residences. This is a nuanced point, but family buyers who want a more family-heavy environment should understand this unit mix before making a purchase decision. Okay, so I'm reaching the end. I just want to sum up with some investment math to give a reminder at the potential here, because Lentor Modern, we see example one of a 2 bedroom unit, 732 square feet, 13% gain after just about 3.5 years, around 9% per year on ROE. If you have the budget, definitely I always recommend my clients to go for a larger unit, at least a 3-bedder, where you can see the profit is much higher at 21% gain or 22% ROE per year. I want to caveat that these are examples and not guarantees because, like I said, Lentor Garden Residences, you are entering at a higher price. But this clearly shows that there's demand. And if buyers are willing to pay resale units at Lentor Modern, where there's so much construction still to go, how much might they be willing to pay for your Lentor Garden Residences unit in future? So if you stayed to the end, I want to invite you to our special sneak preview of Lentor Garden Residences, and this is for Orange Tea clients only. When you come, you'll get the full detailed scoop, the full analysis, the stack selection, the floor plan unit selection, right? You can come up together with me. I'll be there as well to guide you through every step on the way to how to select the best units at Lentor Garden Residences. Of course, if you like a more personal, more private one-to-one consultation with me, feel free to reach out. My name is Jim Tay, and I'll see you in my next video.